University is stolen land. But try telling this to the girl who sits behind me at this ASU graduation as she jokes that there's so many Mexicans here, ICE should do a roundup. Try telling that to her. In the 1800s, James McKinney, a rich businessman, brought Mexicans from Sonora to Tempe and gave them 80 acres of land at the base of the Tempe Butte while they built the Kirkley-McKinney Canal. They built barrios and colonias because explorers have always been dreamers. They settled at the base of what is now a mountain and cultivated the fields of present-day classrooms and university. In the early 1950s, economic and agricultural expansion led to a bigger Tempe, but the city needed more land to do so. So they removed the residents of the Mexican barrios in order to acquire the land they wanted, to make room for more dormitories. For Sun Devil Stadium, Los Mexicanos were forced to move. They built the city's churches, but were sent to pray on the other side of town. And ask any person in Arizona whose ancestors and family lived here during that time, and they will tell you that when your city values economic expansion over culture, community, integrity, identity, it does something to the way you see people. It does something to the way you trust people. But the Hohokam were the first people to settle in Arizona. This was their land. They were building the canal system in 200 AD, and they lived on both sides of the Salt Lake. Each of their villages had its own unique history of emergence, growth, and then abandonment. Snaketown, Ru Casa Grande, Pueblo Grande, Mesa Grande, Las Colinas, Los Hornos, Los Muertos. And after 1375 AD, their settlements were largely abandoned, but some of them stayed, clung to the soil they had loved so much, the soil that was home to their dreams, even though the rains and floods drove the others away. The first Chinese communities sprung up in Prescott and Tucson in the 1870s. In 1879, Chinese railroad workers made their home in Phoenix in and around the location of present-day Chase Field. Chinese built the railroad tracks from Yuma to Maricopa County, but in 1895, petitions were signed to move the Chinese colony to present-day 1st and 3rd Streets, a petition that had no Chinese names on it. They learned Spanish before they knew English, because Mexican and Chinese neighborhoods were never too far apart. The dreamers were always placed far away, just where everyone else wanted them to be. The town of Guadalupe was formed by Mexican refugees after the Mexican Revolution. In 2008, Sheriff Joe Arpaio conducted a massive immigrant raid in the town. These explorers answered with their big dreams, and 250 community leaders confronted Joe face to face, demanding the removal of him and his posse from Guadalupe and to never return to their tierra. On Mill Avenue, there lives an explorer named Chicago. He covers himself in soda can tops and parks his lawn chair on the street because there are no benches on the sidewalk anymore. No public space either. Just people who are rightfully home and people who are not. And maybe you're one of those weary travelers, an explorer who has to dig roots up from soil and reroot just for the right to call your house a home. Immigrants have been building Arizona since the 19th century, and by 1910, among all the states, only in New Mexico did the proportion of Mexicans to the total population exceed that in Arizona. Explorers are dreamers. But a little after midnight this morning, Arizona's own Erika Andiola, one of the country's most prominent Dream Act leaders, had her home raided by immigration, who took her mother and her brother. Guilty only of dreaming. Guilty only of exploring. Tengo amigos que no se quieren aquí. I have friends who aren't even allowed here. If we want to make Arizona a place for exploring again, we have to take risks. We have to wander. We have to follow our dreams. Otherwise, the sheriff will send you to a city made of tents, one he built himself, on land that belongs to explorers, la tierra de exploradores.